Where would we be without the various products delivered by the men and women in the trucking industry? Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast is a platform for professional long-haul truck drivers to share their journeys over the road, educating listeners about the trucking industry and lifestyle. Now, let's dive into the conversation on this brand new episode. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Healthy Conversations in Trucking. This is Dr. Huntley. I'm joined by my husband and co-host today, Jonathan Huntley. If I should do a drum roll. No, okay, I shouldn't have said that.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
I'm good.
That's good. Now, you broke up a little bit because I was going up a hill up in these valleys, but I hear you now.
Okay. Well, I can hear you just fine. We are, as you can tell, I'm in our home office and he's on the road. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in my work office. Right now, I just came through White Plains, New York.
Okay.
I'm in New York,
right,
coming out of New Hampshire and Vermont.
All right. Putting it to contact at the time of this recording. So, of course, by the time we go live on the podcast, who knows where you'll be. But I just, this is how we have to do it sometimes. This is how I conduct all the interviews. I'm usually chatting with folks while they're driving. Sometimes I catch them during their break, but often while they're driving. So this is how we're putting this together today. I wanted us to take a few moments and jump on the podcast for an episode. We can just chat about some of our favorite takeaways from these last few interviews. So behind the scenes, just to put into context, we interview guests, or I interview guests if it's just me. Sometimes I'll interview several guests in the same day. That's the way I batch up the schedule and it works. And then we put all the pieces together and the episodes get scheduled out over several weeks. And then Jonathan and I will record. Often we try to do it when he's home. It's just a lot easier. And then we just kind of put them all together and they come out in different order. So we've had a few guests that we're going to talk about today. And then there's an episode with Jonathan and I, and then a few more guests, but they weren't recorded in that order. So it's been a while since we've been able to come together. And a lot of these episodes, Jonathan was hearing them just like all of you as soon as they were released. And, I'd say, I just had a great conversation. I can't wait for that episode. And he'd go, oh yeah, that sounds great. But the first time he actually heard the episode was the same time you guys hear the episode.
Usually coming out of DC too.
And the good thing is I'll get a text saying, oh, that was a good one. Or, he'll tell me something that he liked about it. So we've been chatting a little bit about some of these recent episodes, and I just wanted us to share. So if you happen to be listening to this for the very first time, then this gives you a little bit of a sneak peek into them, but make sure you go back and listen to the full episodes. If you've been listening for a while and you're kind of skipping around, you really don't want to miss any of them. So I encourage you to go back. And we don't have a whole lot of episodes. We're still a new podcast, but we're going to talk about some of our favorite takeaways from the few, in our recent episodes. So let's start with, let's see. In episode 14 and 15, I interviewed two ladies who are a part of Women in Trucking, and they were phenomenal. First of all, thank you, Women in Trucking, for sharing the podcast and encouraging your members to become guests on the show. I've really enjoyed getting to know them, and it's I love how you've helped to support us in encouraging them to be on the podcast. So I appreciate Women in Trucking for doing that.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for that too. That was that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been wonderful to share the platform and really amplify the voices of these women. And it's been blowing my mind because we've had, let's see, so episode 14 was Wysina Henney, and episode 15 was, Angelique, I'm looking at my notes here, Temple. And each of these women had more than 20 years of experience. So Wysina was 20 years over the road, and she spoke very highly of her company. She drives for Covenant Logistics Group, and she talked about them quite a bit.
All the time.
You do?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
When I was talking to her, I think I don't think it was during the episode. I think it was off of the recording. We were chatting about that because I had just taken that trip. Remember when I went to Nashville? And on the way there, I passed right by there.
Yep.
And so she talked, and she has over 20 years of experience. So she's a driver trainer. And she talked so much. You
need to put an asterisk by that. 20 years with the same company.
Oh,
and in trucking, that is unheard of in trucking. So kudos to her.
Yeah, I can. Oh, yeah, that is a very good point. The same company. I should emphasize that. She said that her uncle had encouraged her. He had been a driver for over 50 years, and he encouraged her to get into trucking. What were your thoughts to hear from women like Wazina, and then also even Angelique? She had been driving for over 23 years, and she drives, she said, from hazmat to now she drives dry food products, but majority of her time was hazmat.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, it's like a lineage, I can't speak, but, it's like a family tree line. So you got uncles that are driving, or you got family members that drive, and they've been very successful in it. I mean, my uncle drove for almost 50 years, and he was successful in it. And, he was like the first person I went to when I started thinking about driving a truck back in, 2009. And, so for her to get in there with her uncle, and I mean, it makes you feel good that, we're a part of something that people look at family members and they're doing well, and they say, hey, I want to do that also.
Yeah.
And with the proper training and the proper, you got to have your head screwed on correctly. You just can't come out here and get behind the wheel and drive it like a Ford Pinto. But, it's a testament to both the women's willpower and strength and fortitude to be out here for over 20 years. That's just crazy.
Yeah, I think that for me, it really makes me wonder just how many, women do we have out there who've just silently, in the background, the shadows of the industry for years, because, like you've said many times, this is clearly a male dominated industry for so long. So for these women to come out as powerhouses with all the, the conversations were just packed. Angelique talked about how she raised all 6 of her kids, from her career, her driving over the road. And she had 2 that went through medical school.
Yeah.
And, she just rattled it off like it was, just simple, like, yeah, I did this thing today kind of thing. But it made me think, and I know as a woman, the first thing that came to my mind as I started to hear these women talk about their journey into trucking was just how we are it's so common for us to do all the things as women. That's just our role so often. I'm not saying that that's how it should be, but that's just how it's been. And we've often had to, especially in an area industry, any industry we're going into where it's typically male dominated, we've had to do the most to just kind of level the playing field. So to hear these women talk about all these things that they've done and accomplished, and, with 20 plus years over the road, it really was more than just mind blowing for me. It was a lot of wow moment in there, but then I also had a feeling of just what they probably had to go overcome and deal with in being able to accomplish that. So just a lot of levels of wow for me as I listen to these women.
Yeah, I think it's a great accomplishment for both the ladies. And I know that the one had mentioned that she would drive hazmat to nuclear sites, and she couldn't talk about the stuff that she delivered. And, there was a stint when I was working with air gas, and we had to go out to the nuclear plant, or, when I was driving, the LTL stuff and with Averitt Express and going on to the nuclear plant, you got an armed guard sitting in there in your car with you, or your truck with you, and you can't move unless they're right alongside you. So some of the things she hauled into that place, I could only imagine. But when it comes to stuff like that, you got to have the skill level, and you got to have patience too. Because when you have something that volatile on your truck, you can't be, jumping in and out of traffic and doing stuff like that. You got to really focus on the road and focus on these other cars and other trucks out here, because nowadays everybody can't drive down the road without their phone in their hand and they're looking at something like that. So when you got dangerous explosive stuff on there she had, you just got to step it up so much higher than just running flowers across the country.
Right. Yeah. I learned so much, listening to them, and they were both so appreciative of, the platform and the opportunity to just share their journey and what it's been like for them. And, it was really very much a feel good moment for me to host them, to have them on the podcast, to encourage so many other women who may be thinking of going into the industry, or just other women who've been driving for a long time, and just to hear, their colleagues, and for the men who maybe, just aren't used to hearing from the women, and they're hearing some of the stories, that they like you, just really eye opening. And I just felt good about having, sharing the platform. It made me feel really good as a podcast host. So I was really honored to have them on the show. And then there's also, we had in episode 17, we had Vanita, and she came from law enforcement into education and then into trucking. And when I was interviewing her, I remember thinking, I just knew you were going to have a lot in common as you heard her background, especially the law enforcement, and how she talked about some things. So do you remember that episode?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was almost like a parallel universe when I was listening to her. Cause she said that she had 3 things she wanted to do in her life, and here I am. I'm saying, well, there's 3 things I wanted to do in my life. I was being law enforcement, play professional sports, and drive a truck. And, I was blessed to do all 3. And, it's, for her to be able to step out and say that she's done the same thing too. And she had a lot of good tips too. Stuff that is like, oh wow, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, me too. She said that she had, gone through the training, and she just decided she was going to go straight to owner operator, just skip the company employee role. And
that step right there alone, especially nowadays. I mean, I paid $6.55 a gallon yesterday. I can't imagine being an owner operator right now. And yeah, there's fuel surcharges that that the loads are getting and things of that nature. But my goodness, that's just to be an owner operator and be a fresh owner operator right out of the gate.
Yeah,
January, buying her own truck. Yeah,
she started January 2021.
Yeah, and getting out there and being her own bro. She's on top of it.
Yeah,
that's impressive right there.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now, as driving for 13 years, I would not want to be an owner operator right now.
Yeah,
in any circumstances.
Well, she definitely, she just came out with a lot of spunk, and she's doing so well. I was so inspired just listening to her. And I like that she's got this real, she's got this confidence, and she's talking about all the things that she's done and how she stepped out there, but she's got this humbleness, like she's, learning, every step of the way. There's so much to learn. She's enjoying what she's doing. And I love people like that. You can be really confident in who you are and very humble at the same time. I'm sorry.
I think one of the best successes out here as a driver, as a new driver, regardless if you're an owner operator or a company guy or something like that, is she had the willingness to listen. I mean, I think she said that she talked to some of the older gentlemen at truck stops and things, and they would give her tips, and she would, take from those tips instead of shutting them down and saying, "Oh, I don't need to talk to you. I don't need to hear from you. I'm an owner operator, yada, yada, yada."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference between being a steering wheel holder and being a professional driver. When you can sit there and you can take instruction, because I'll still sit here and I'll still, take instruction from someone who's been out here longer than me. If I'm doing something wrong or if I can improve what I'm doing out here, of course I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's, her tip was listen and learn from the old timers.
Yeah. That's valuable information. It's, they've been there, done that twice or three times over, so that's good.
She's, I really enjoyed all of those conversations, but they really, really hit, and even like I said, as the host, I spoke to them and put all this together, but to have them drop week after week, I was super proud. It just added a lot of power. And I really am curious to know how, if you're listening and you've been, regular listener to the podcast so far, how did you feel when each week? Are you just excited about what's coming next? I'd love to hear from you. It would be great to get some feedback to know, what, if you're enjoying these episodes, and we still need guests. I can't emphasize that enough. As much as I'm loving this, and this is really, all these episodes and these conversations are great. This is exactly what we want more of. Men and women who will come share this platform, have a conversation with me and with us, the two of us, depending on the scheduling and the timing, but come on here and talk to us about your journey over the road. That's what we're here for. And we really need more. And it's very difficult, it's impossible to have this show, to maintain and to grow and to keep it going if we don't have, more men and women who will come on and share their story. So it's really super easy to do from our website, Healthy Conversations in Trucking, or simply HCITpodcast.com. If you go to our website, at the very bottom or in the menu, you'll see both places, be a guest, and just fill out the form and schedule a time for a call. And then I just simply call you at that time and we have a conversation. So we really, really need guests. I cannot emphasize that enough. I hope you're enjoying these episodes, but I do need you to help us to get more people, who want to share their story on the podcast. It's super, super easy.
Yeah.
That's how we'll keep it going.
I get a great voice and I got thousands of stories, but people don't want to hear from me. So
no, this is about sharing the thousands of stories from thousands of men and women on the road. We don't want 1,000 stories from one or two people. We want 1,000 people sharing their individual stories. That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
So it won't work otherwise. So I can't emphasize that enough. Let's see. What else did we have here? Oh, let's talk about our power couple. We had Robert and Carla.
Very interesting.
As soon as I talked to them, I was, okay, so let me tell you this first. And I know why you say it's very interesting. We're going to get to that in a second. But my first thing was, I had Carla on the schedule, and this is from a technical podcaster's point of view. I don't typically have interviews with two guests at the same time. And I'm a little more hesitant, especially with trucking, because there's already a lot more background noise with me talking to you, like while you're driving and over the road and just in the truck and all the noises. And then you add two people, and that's a little tricky because the mic is not exactly aligned and the sound could be off. And then you have that dynamic where, well, when it's male and female, the voices are clearly different enough and it's not hard to tell who's who, but it's just the dynamic of trying to get all that together on a podcast. It takes a certain setup. So I was caught off guard, and as much as I like to stick to a plan, I do pack a lot of flexibility in everything I do. So my first thing was to just kind of run through and make sure the sound was good. It just so happens that they were not driving at the time, and their audio was perfect. So I ran with it, and it turned out to be one of the best conversations in a moment where I was otherwise a little panicked. But
well, Doc, I think you did an excellent job. It was a very, very good episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And even when I was listening, and I I hear in your voice when you're talking to this couple, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. No, that ain't gonna happen. Yeah,
See,
you're right. I know that.
That's the part when you said that was interesting, because I knew you would be listening to this and flipping out, because I learned a whole lot during that conversation. I understand a whole lot more about why you don't want to ride with me.
Exactly. So I have to thank David. You know, if you're listening,
it was
David,
Robert.
thank you very much. Oh, Robert, see, I apologize. I'm driving right now, and another car just cut me off. So. Well, I want to thank him for, shedding the light, because we've been married 10 years and that light's never come on. And it's just, I don't know if there's no electricity in the socket, but every time I talk about it, it's like, can you not understand? So thank you. I appreciate it. So would you like to elaborate about what we're talking about?
Well, I do want you all to hear the episode. If you have not listened to it, that was episode 18. So the one right before this one. That episode was so much fun to record. Again, once I knew the audio was good and we were rolling just fine. It worked out great. But I learned so much. I honestly believe that episode is great for any couple. It doesn't even matter if you're in trucking or not. They shared so many little nuggets, like golden nuggets throughout that whole conversation that I think are just great for any relationship. Our assistant that helps us with the podcast told me that while she was, going through and getting all the things ready for this episode, she was listening, and she got her husband listening because of just the things that they were sharing and talking about. It was just a lot of really good information, just things that they learned about themselves as a couple over the road. I mean, a lot of what they talked about really comes down to communication skills, which are, the better your communication skills, the better, just overall, how you interact with each other in the marriage is just improved. So they talked a lot about what they learned. They were very open and transparent about the arguments and how they had to set the rules, and have to follow and abide by the rules. But those are the things that, really help them be successful. I was just so encouraged by them, just both trucking and just in life. I really enjoyed that.
They're pretty upfront about, this wasn't, some butter on some bread in a toaster. This is, some burnt bread that had to be scraped off on this team effort of driving. And and I can relate. I mean, we took a trip across country, and, when I was hauling cars, the military cars across country, and I don't think I would have slept either if you had an opportunity to drive. And it's not to the point where it's just a male chauvinist saying I've got to drive. I'm a professional driver. That's what I do. And I've tried to, say this point. I know I'm not alone. I feel more safe and more comfortable when I'm driving a car or my truck and there's people in there, because that's what I do for a living. And
you've always been like that, regardless of the truck. Like, you're like that if we're on a road trip in our own vehicles. And I've been driving a long time. I've taken plenty of road trips up and down the East Coast. I've gone out west and back with a bunch of kids in the car. I've done a lot of driving, but still, it's just it's just how you are. Like, you are not at peace, and you can't rest if somebody else is driving, period. Doesn't matter who it is.
It's 100. I can't be in that passenger seat. I don't like to be in that passenger seat. It's just what it is. I mean, it's, I don't know.
So we wouldn't make any money if we if we drove together, because I'd never drive.
We'd make money. We probably just wouldn't talk to each other.
Would you ever? You would never sit down and let me drive. You would never take the backseat.
I mean, we have great communication. We have an awesome marriage. We're a great team. When it comes to other things, but a prime example is when we're going to Florida. A couple of years ago, I worked all night, got home, and the plan was I was going to sleep in the passenger seat while you drove. And I couldn't sleep a wink. We come up to a wreck, and I said, why didn't you get off and go around the back of roads? You know?
Oh my gosh, you made everybody miserable on that trip.
I should have drove. But anyways, back to the episode. It's a great episode, and they went through some burnt toast to get it to the perfect where they have it now. And it does take good teamwork out here. I personally would not want to be a team driver. If my wife wasn't doing, great things out in the world with her profession and her as a doctor and the countless amount of people she's helping with their businesses and things like that. Yeah, I would love for her to be in the truck with me, to be a team, because the money is phenomenal. But right now in our lives, I mean, it is what it is. And I think, on our dynamic, Dr. Huntley is better off where she is right now. Well, and I can have peace of mind and sleep at night.
Well, I don't think I could not drive with you. And that's with or without the doctor in my name. That wouldn't work for me, but I love the way that it works for Carla and Robert.
They did an excellent job. Kudos to them.
Yes, I am really, I loved hearing about their background and, I love all the reasons they love, all the things they love about being out and over the road. I loved hearing like what she didn't like so much or some of the things that he really liked and how they like being able to experience the open road and seeing the country and all those things. Now, I love all of that. And, it would be great to experience all of those things. I wouldn't want to, we're not going to be that couple that works together. I think we've established that, but I love the way that they, the way things came together for them. I loved how they both talk about, the spiritual growth. Carla said, she gets a lot of God time, and they just really turned, they make the most of that entire situation. If you haven't heard that episode, you just got to listen to it, because it's hard for me to even kind of put into context and trying to summarize it for you any better than just listening to it. The great stories.
He and I are a lot alike in a lot of different ways. You and her are a lot alike in a lot of ways, because you will refuse to get off the highway. And I'm looking for a back road. If there's a 5-minute backup, I want to be around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they were. And the greatest takeaway I heard from that episode is this: whoever is behind the wheel is the boss.
Yeah.
They are in control of that truck because that's their license. It's not his and it's not hers when they're on a 10-hour break. It's who's ever behind the wheel. And I think that's one of the main reasons why they work so well together. And they had to come to that common ground also.
That's what I mean. Like, their communication is excellent.
Yeah.
And they really just, and if you think about that and you take it aside from the road, I mean, that's really how you navigate life. You have to make compromises. You have to set boundaries and rules, whatever they are. You figure out what they are just by, you have enough arguments and you figure out, okay, what do we do so we're not arguing? Or if you bump heads enough, you figure out, okay, what do we need to do to stop bumping heads? I mean, they're figuring things out and setting their own rules, and it's not like they've been doing it forever. They've mastered this in a short period of time. We're talking a few years. Yeah. So I really enjoy this. I would listen to that one again, and I recorded it and already listened to it when it came out. So, one of the things, and I'm going to wrap up with this one, because as soon as she said it, I immediately thought about you. When I asked her what she likes, one of the things she likes least, and she began to talk about your pet peeve. What's your number one pet peeve, John?
My number one pet peeve is a fuel island.
Yeah, when she said that, I was like, oh my God.
I cannot understand. I know I'm not alone. And it drives me bonkers for guys to block the fuel island, to get the fuel, and then sit there and do their 30-minute break. And she made it. Time is money. Money is time.
Yeah.
If you want to do a 30-minute break at the fuel island, do it at 2:30 in the morning on a Sunday when there's nobody around. I don't care. You can get off and go take a shower or whatever you want to do. But at 3:30 in the afternoon or 5:30 in the evening or something like that, you're sitting at these fuel pumps for 45 minutes, and you got 15,000 trucks behind you trying to get fuel. Please, for the love of Jesus, move your truck. Just get your fuel, get your truck. I mean, there's got all these buttons on our electronic logs, and everybody's on them now, thanks to a couple companies. But anyways, there's a PC mode, there's a yard move, there's all this other stuff that you can push and move. Now, some people are going to come back and say, no, I can't because I'm on Qualcomm. If I move that truck 1 inch, it puts me back into drive and I'll lose my 30-minute break. Well, my friend, that's on you. That's called poor time management. And you need to manage your time better because there's people out here, professionals out here like us and the people we interview that know how to manage our time, and we don't want to be stuck behind you in a fuel aisle. So, yes, that is one of my biggest and most irritating pet peeves. I don't know if I elaborated enough.
Yeah, you did. You did. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. There you go. You gotta
back up because you got me thinking about this again.
You gotta take a deep breath and relax.
I mean, I had 2 guys last night wanted to fight because the guy had been sitting at the pump for 20 minutes, and the guy in front was in there eating. Eating.
Wow.
And they wanted to fight. I'm like, hey, it is what it is. But, I mean, but that's not just from that episode. That's a common issue with a lot of these episodes.
I know I've heard a few drivers say the same thing.
Yeah, it falls back on the courtesy thing.
Yeah.
It's all about courtesy. The other drivers out here, we're all out here doing a job. We're all out here missing our wives and our families and stuff like that. We don't need the aggravations from other drivers adding and compounding to our day. I mean, I've had 25 cars cut me off today. I don't need to be sitting at the pump.
Okay, I didn't want you to get on a rant, John. I just was making that one point. You're going too far. Let's just reel it back in. Let's end on a good note, please. Tell me something that was a great takeaway from that particular episode so we don't leave you there. I'll tell you one of mine.
A great thing is myself. Just like
you cut off a little bit. Say that again.
I said I love running across 70, not in the wintertime, but spring and summertime. That's beautiful. Where they actually operate out there in the Midwest and out in the West Coast and stuff, it's gorgeous out there. And I love hearing some of the best parts of where these people love driving and doing their business at and things like that. So
nice.
It's a good teamwork. It was a great episode, and I'm very happy for them. And I wish them many, many, many more years of success, like all the other guests we've had on our podcast now. So
I really enjoyed all of my guests, and I've always felt like that. I've been in podcasting 5 years. And as a matter of fact, as we record this, tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of when I started my business, and I started podcasting just a few months after I kicked off the business. And one of the things that, whether it's with my public health podcast or it's with this one of the things I love the most is when I get to interview my guests, because I learn something new in every conversation. I love hearing the stories and the journeys of, the people in the industry, and what they're doing. So thinking about trucking, this is very new take and twist on a topic and a population that's been, near and dear my heart for many, many years. So although this podcast is new, I've been, really in tune and following this truck driving community, this community of truck drivers, over the road truck drivers specifically, for a very long time. So I really enjoy, what I do, and it's just been a real treat to get to meet these men and women over the road. So I look forward to the upcoming episodes, and thank you for taking some time to recap with me. This has been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Conversations in Trucking podcast. Learn more or be a guest on a future episode by visiting healthyconversationsinTrucking.com or simply hcitpodcast.com.